everyone, it's Paul from Mako in our third and final installment of computer game design. I'd like to say a big thanks to Curious Minds and the Bubble Up project for allowing us to do these 3 videos covering different topics of coding computer games. So thanks very much guys, and I'm going to crack on with what is going to be an epic final computer game. So I've took inspiration from an old computer game called Galaga, where a few of you might be like, oh, what's Galaga? I've never heard of that. And it's kind of putting together the concept of the first week, which was the avoiding game, and adding some projectiles in there, and being able to move around, and multiple bad guys appearing at different times and over different parts of the screen and stuff like that. So they're kind of a little bit like Space Invaders. That might be a bit better of an analogy for people to kind of get the concept. So MakeCode Arcade, we've used it for 2 videos now. If you've not, go back and check the first 2 videos. Fantastic games that we made. So MakeCode Arcade, when you get to the website, same as always, go and have a look through all the different tutorials that are on there. But what we're going to focus on is this orange square with the orange plus inside a white circle. We're going to create a new project, and I'm just going to call this, let's call it Galaga for the time being. I might come up with a better name. So once you give it a name, press create. Don't worry, you can always change this name at any time at the bottom of your screen here, because it puts it in here, so you can change it at any time, or you can change it when we publish it at the end. So first things first, most important part of any computer game is designing your character. So like I said, this is going to be kind of like a flying game. So I'm going to go to my sprite, and I'm going to use this first block here that says set my sprite, and I'm going to drag that one into the on start. And because it's a flying game, I'm going to design an aeroplane, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an aeroplane. It could be a spaceship, it could be whatever you want. But just to throw it out there, we are going to be flying across the screen and moving in different directions. So I've not come up with a name for it yet, so I'm going to leave the variable as it is. I'm going to go straight into designing my character. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go straight into the editor. And I'm going to think about how I'm going to design my plane. But if this is a new video for you and you're looking at this editor and you're thinking, oh, I wish I could have a little practice, check out the first videos, because we did have templates like this. Blank templates where you can draw in a character, and you can then practice till you get it right and see how it fits in the screen, because these squares match up the squares on the screen. Okay, so go back and check them if you need to. Right, so I'm going to try my very best to draw a pretty cool fighter jet. So I'm going to go on ahead and design my spaceship. If you want to pause here and then design yours, and then unpause the video when you're finished to catch up with the next steps, do so now. Okay, so there's my airplane designed. You can add some more design to yours if you like. If you go for an airplane, you can put some logos on there, some stripes or anything, but I've gone for a nice bold colour that's going to stand out and I'm going to be able to see it. Okay, so there's my airplane. Once you're happy with it and you're happy with whatever you've designed, you're going to click on this done button at the bottom, and you're going to rename your variable. Okay, so we're going to click where it says my sprite. I'm going to rename it, because that allows us to have a little bit more control on when we're putting other coding in, and it's easy to link it. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to rename the variable. I'm going to call it Star Fox. Okay, give it a name, click OK. So now I know this variable is always going to be Star Fox, and it's easier to pull it out rather than all your variables being named my sprite 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I've got this, and what we need to do now is to be able to move our spaceship. So we're going to go into the controller section, and we're going to go for this very first one that says move my sprite with buttons. I'm going to drop this one in. Going to link the variable to Star Fox, my character name, and I'm going to click the plus button. And what I'm going to do this time is, if you've watched the other videos, we've not really changed the speed of the characters, but with this one I'm going to double it. So from 100 I'm going to put both to 200, because we need our character to be very maneuverable, because we need to move around the screen and as well release projectiles. So we need our characters to move quite quickly. So he moves very rapid around the screen. But with my plane, I can take it off the screen. So what we need to do now is we need to go into the sprite section, click on the sprite section, and we need to scroll down until we get to the effects section, and we see this one that says set my sprite, stay in screen, and then the toggle is turned off. So we need to grab this one, put it under our control section, remembering to change our variable, and we need to toggle that to say on. Okay, so now when we move our ship, as our plane or whatever it is that you've done, he stays within the screen. Okay, what we need to do next is our character's going to have a certain amount of lives. Okay, so we need to go into the info section, and we need to give our character some lives. So in the live section there's one that says set to 3. We're going to drop that one in. Okay, you can give your players different amount of lives. I like 3. You might want to increase it. You might want to give people 5. Okay, but I'm going to stick with 3. You can change that. You can be mean if you want. You can give them just 1. But let's be a little bit reasonable. Let's give them 3 to start with. And also we want a time limit on our game. So we're going to go back into the info section, and we're going to scroll down until we get to the countdown section, and then the first one in the countdown says start countdown 10 seconds. So we're going to drag this one in, and this is how long your game's going to last for. So you need to think about what's a reasonable amount of time to set a high score by destroying enemies and avoiding enemies. You need to think about what's reasonable. Is 10 seconds long enough? Is 5 minutes too long? So what you need to do is you need to go to the 10 seconds, and I'm going to give a reasonable time, and I'm going to say 30 seconds. Okay, so that's reasonable. Plenty of time to set a high score, plenty of time to try and avoid enemies, and if you hit an enemy and all that kind of stuff. So that's a reasonable time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to carry on with our hero, but we're going to give our hero the ability to fire a projectile. Okay, so our next thing is to get a projectile and an input for those. So what we need to do is we need to go into the controller section, and we need to get from the single player on a button pressed. This one here is the second one down, and this just means when the A button is pressed, run the next bit of code. And we want that next bit of code to be a projectile, so that this is going to destroy our enemies, okay, and give us some points. So to do this, we need to go into the sprite section, and we need to scroll down, because there's a certain projectile part. There we go, a section, projectiles, and we're going to look at this one here that says set projectile to projectile from my sprite with VX50, VY50. So it's this top one. So we're going to drag this one into the on button one. And this is where we're going to design our missile, laser, rocket, whatever it might be. Okay, you can see that we've got an error. So we need to change that to our variable of whatever we've called our character. So mine's Star Fox. And then I'm going to click on this square here. And this is where I'm going to design a missile. I'm going to have a rocket coming from my ship. So same as before, using the same tools at the side, same colors. You can pause the video while I'm drawing this and then unpause it once you've designed your laser beam, missile, rocket, bullet, wherever it might be, or whatever. It can be anything that's going to come from your plane. So have a go, design your projectile. So there's my projectile done. I've gone for a rocket, a missile. It's going to look like it's been fired from my plane. I've got a bit of fire coming out the back of it as well to give it that effect of it flying through the air. So once you're happy with it, press that done button here. It's green and it's at the bottom right hand corner. So I've now got my projectile. So what we can do, you can rename it if you want to make it easier for yourself, but with it being labeled projectile, it kind of makes it a little bit obvious what it's going to be. It's not got like a projectile 1, 2 or 3 or anything like that, so you can leave that if you want to. And what we need to do now is we need to put different numbers into here. We need to change these numbers. So this one here, okay, gives you a little slider as well. We need to change this one because the slider doesn't go high enough. We need to change this one to 200. And we need to change this one, the second one, the 50, we need to change that to 0. Because our projectiles are just going to be going from left to right. Okay, they're only going to be going across the screen. They're not going to be going up and down or on diagonals. They're only going to be going left to right. So what we need to do now is we need to put some bad guys in there, some enemy planes that we're going to shoot down. So first things first, we need to go into this game section because we're going to choose a block that says every set amount of time we want a bad guy to appear. So second one down, this one here that says on game update 500 milliseconds, we're going to drag this one in. And this just means every half a second a bad guy is going to appear. You can change it if you want to make it a little bit harder or easier. It could be that you have a bad guy appearing every 1 second. Okay, this is where your little demo at the side comes very useful. So you could have it set at 500, so every half a second, and if that's too hard you can always change it by putting it up to a second, 1000 milliseconds, to make it a little bit easier. Okay, but I'm going to leave mine at 500 and I'm going to get my character design. So I'm going to go to the sprite section and I'm going to get this one here that says set my sprite square of kind and player. So I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to click here to design my character. I'm going to design kind of a different looking spaceship or plane, but I'm going to design it so it looks like it's flying from right to left. So my original plane, I designed it, if I go back so you can see, if I scroll up, you can see my plane looks like it's facing and it's flying from left to right. I'm going to go the opposite with this one. I'm going to design it so it looks like it's flying the other way. So same as before, you can pause the video if you'd like to as you're designing your plane or spaceship or whatever it is, and then unpause when you're done for the next steps. Okay, so I've designed my enemy plane and I've used the same sort of colour red as it, but I've slightly changed the design, put different colour wings on there, and I've done a bigger canopy where the pilot would be sat. So now what we need to do is rename the variable like we did before when I called it Star Fox. So I'm going to click on here and I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it Bogey. Because usually when you're looking at different types of flying games, fighting games, the bad guys are always called bogeys. So what I'm going to do here is, this isn't a player. It's not going to be a command. We're not going to be controlling it. So I'm going to change that to enemy. So now this bit of code is always going to be related to the enemy. Okay, so now once we've got our enemy designed and changed and branded up so we know what it is, we need to now be able to move it, say where it's coming from, what position it's going to appear, how fast it's going to appear. So to do that, we go into the sprite section, and it's this first block under physics that says set my sprite velocity to Vx50 Vy50. So it's this one here. I'm going to drag that one in, and if yours doesn't automatically change the variable, just click on the drop down and choose the correct variable, and we're going to choose two different numbers to go in these bubbles here. So we're going to put in -100, and this 50 is going to be 0. So this allows the plane just to come across the screen from right to left. So it's not going in different angles, it's just going across at the same speed in the same direction. So now what we need to do is we need to think about where our planes or enemies are going to appear from. So we're going to go back into the sprite section, and we're going to look at this one here that says set my sprite position X and Y. I'm going to drag this one in. Again, if it doesn't automatically change your variable, change it. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to use a little bit of maths. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the math section, and we're going to use a pick random. So this just means this one here that says pick random. We're just going to put in some coordinates and a range of coordinates, so your planes are going to appear at random positions across the screen. So pick random, and we're going to drop this into the first bubble. So you can see as I'm bringing it, it puts two red dots connected by a yellow line to make sure it's going into the right one. And I'm going to get another one of those, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put it in this side, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick some numbers that allow your plane to appear just at this right edge of the screen. So they're not going to appear anywhere else, just along this right edge of the screen. So in this first one here, we're going to put 180, and in this second one we're going to put 180. So that relates to this side of the screen. And in this first one we can leave as 0, and then in the last one we're going to choose 120. So now when I refresh my game, I have planes coming from the right in different parts of the screen. So we can see our game slowly coming together. So I can control my plane, I can fire projectiles, so I can fire missiles, but nothing happens. There's no winner, there's no loser, I'm not getting any points, my lives aren't going down, nothing's happening. So what we need to do now is we need to create some overlaps. And these overlaps just mean when something touches something else, run this bit of code. When this touches that, run another bit of code. So overlaps are in this blue section here. And we're going to scroll down. So in the sprite section, we're going to scroll down, and there is a designated overlap that says on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind player. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag this in, and we're going to change where it says player at the end to enemy. So this means when the enemy overlaps our sprite, something happens. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to the sprite section, and I'm going to scroll down for one that says destroy. And it's this one here that says destroy my sprite, and then it's got a plus sign. So under effects, destroy my sprite, and it's got like a white plus symbol. I'm going to drag that one in and put it in our overlap. And what I'm going to do is, see this other bubble here where it says other sprite, I'm going to drag that and I'm going to put that in there. It'll pop out the bogey bit, and you can just drag that to your left hand side and you can put it in the bin. If you then click on this plus sign, you can choose with what effect you want that to happen. So I'm going to go for fire, and I'm going to run that really quickly for 100 milliseconds, because any longer you'll start having the effect running and running and running while you're still trying to move the character. So really short, you'll see the fire when it touches it and hits it, so don't worry. Just a really short one for that one, because you're going to carry on moving your character. So what we need to now say is that the bogey, so the other sprite, has overlapped our hero, needs to do something else. And we've got 3 lives, haven't we? So we need to go to the info section, and we need to get this one that says under lives, change life by -1. And we drop that one in. So now we've at the overlap, we've got an effect to say the bogey, the baddie, the enemy has touched our hero plane, and we've got a bit of effect and to lose a life as well. So what we can do is, if I refresh the game and check it, if I touch a plane, I've got some fire, I've lost a life, and the other plane has been destroyed as well. So I'm losing lives. The enemy plane and your hero plane have caught fire, and the other plane has been destroyed as well. So we need another overlap now for the projectile. So the plane, once it's fired the projectile, the projectile destroys the enemy plane. So we're going to get this same overlap. I'm going to go into the sprite section, scroll down to the overlaps, which is here, drag it in, find a bit of space on your screen, and we're going to change the player to be a projectile, and we're also going to change the end bit where it says player to enemy. And this just means the projectile's gonna, when it touches the enemy, run this bit of code. So we're going to go into the sprite section again. We're going to look for the destroy one, which is here, destroy my sprite, and it's got the white plus sign. Drag that in. We're going to do what we did before, drag the other sprite bubble, drop it in to replace bogey, delete the bogey section. Pop up, same as before, you can have a different type of effect. Okay, there's loads of different types of effects that you can choose, whether it still be fire or rings or whatever it might be. I might go for disintegrate. And same again, I'm going to change that down to a nice low number, so it's still not happening while your game's running. It's really short. And this time, instead of it changing live by -1, I'm going to go into the info section, and I'm going to put change score. Okay, so this means when the projectile touches and destroys the enemy plane, you collect a point. So if I now press the refresh button, I should be able to move fire, and you can see the planes get destroyed when I actually hit. But I've got a really bad aim on this one. I've lost a life. Going through, oh, there we go. Getting some nice scores now. Oh, I lost a life. Ooh. So it's completely up to you. Ah, game over. High score of 9 though. Woohoo! So it's up to you what else you want to add into the game, because there's plenty of different things that you can look at there, whether it be adding more scores. So it might be, instead of changing the score by 1, you could change it by every time you destroy a plane you get 5. You might change it, the life system. There's loads of different things that you can add into your game to think, what can I do? So what I'm going to ask you to do is a little bit of an extension, is maybe instead of it being a plain black background, can you change the background? So we've got planes. So think about what code you could add in there to make it look like the plane's flying over land or sea or whatever it might be. Another challenge is to add some sound effects in there. So I think about where the sound effects could be. Okay, so it might be when the projectile's fired, it might be when the enemy plane's destroyed, it might be when you lose a life. There's loads of different things and places that you can put them. So think about sound effects and think about how you can make it harder. How could I make this game harder? Okay, because if that might be too easy, how can I make it harder? There's loads of different ways. Have a little think about it, have a little play around, adding different code in, changing different things. And as always, if you add something in that doesn't make your game work, have a little play around with it. Maybe you might need to add some other bits of code in around that block to make it work, or take it out if you can't get it working, because this here, all this code that we've done in this video, is the basic code to make your game work. Okay, so you can always come back to this. This is the basic code to make your game work. If your game doesn't work because you've changed it too much, come back to this, start again. So people always ask, Paul, can I save this? How do I keep hold of it? What do I do with it? So once you're happy with it, you're going to go to the share button at the top. You're going to click share. And what we can do is we can rename it. I'm going to put Paul's New Galaga. And once you give your project a title, you can click publish. And this gives you this little window where you can share it to social media, you can message it to people, you can do everything with it. Or if you just wanted to keep hold of it so you can come back at it at a later time, you can do. This URL, if you click copy, you can share it to people, send people that URL. You can put it in your notes. I always tend to make notes of my games so we don't lose them. And if you share those to people, don't worry, because when they open that link, they kind of get their own little version of your game. So if they make changes to it, your game won't have those changes in them. So don't worry about sharing them with people. They can make changes and it's not going to affect what game you've made. Also, try, if you want to, if you've made something really cool, try sharing it with us at Mako. We love seeing people's games of all the different types of characters they made, what changes they've made. I've just given you the basic outline of a game that we've had games sent to us and people have made loads of different changes and made them even better. Okay, so if you share something that you're really proud, if you make something that you're really proud of, share it to us so we can see it. And that's it for this third and final installment of Coding Computer Games. I'd like to say again another big thanks to Curious Minds and the Bubble Up project for having us a part of it. If you've not seen the other two videos, go back and check them out. But I've been Paul from Mako. Thank you for watching.